All right, you guys, live with Asher Cowan. Wow, so excited to have you on. You guys, this guy is one of my close friends now after working with him for a year plus and in our EMF Rocks grounding bags. He has been the liaison between me and his dad, Tom Cowan, the former MD, and now a biodynamic organic farmer, regenerative farmer out in New York. And Asher he runs a company and is a grower himself and has his own food forest in his backyard, as Alex Zach would call it, and Jim Gale would call it. And so I am just so excited, Asher, to connect with you on this urban freedom topic. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, drtomcowan.com and drcowansgarden.com are your two big sites that you're running, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So on Dr. Tom Cowan, that's, it's heavily focused on my dad and his work, but also the supplements, and I would call them health devices. I use the umbrella term health devices when I'm talking about, things like the EMF rocks and water structuring and those types of things. So that's the information that he puts out, and his voice, his writing, his books, and then a lot of the products and supplements that we use or that he uses and believes in, that are specifically designed to cater to the particular health challenges that we're facing today. The electromagnetic radiation poisoning, all the other toxins, and all the other health challenges that we're facing today. And then Dr. Cowan's Garden, that's really I would call it a health food company. So our first line of products is a line of vegetable powders. So a good way to think of them is like a seasoning or a spice. Use them in cooking, and they're a great way to add extra nutrition and, more importantly, vegetable diversity into your diet. And then we've also launched a line of ghee and nuts and nut butters, and we also have a sort of butcher box type of product line of products, meat products sourced from Polyface Farm. So if people aren't familiar with that, that's Joel Salatin's farm, and so you can get frozen meat directly from Polyface Farm sent to your door. So with the coming food shortages that are either planned or just happening because of basic economics, we're developing and building a site and a company to help people with those food challenges. So check that out, drcowansgarden.com.
Wow. Well, you guys, you're one of my main go-to for food and supplements, and so it's fantastic. Now, I want to start with kind of where we were just chatting before we got on. Start with what urban freedom means as far as just first off having a choice. Like, we can choose to get a shot or not get a shot. We're born free, and the word like I have to it's so weak. It's like you don't have to do anything. It should be an honor and a privilege and a choice. And let's start talking about just wherever your mind goes on urban freedom for choosing what goes in your body.
Yeah, well, it comes down to, in my opinion, it comes down to understanding the broader agenda of what's going on. And I think that if we take a step back and look at that, I think the powers that be want direct control over our bodies, over where we are, where we're able to transact, and basically everything in between. I think the infrastructure in terms of policing and the other ways that they've used to basically monitor and make sure that the population is stable and not rioting is sort of crumbling. And so they're going to a more direct control. And so what that means for us is we need to build redundancies and systems in our lives to be able to break away from that system. And it really comes down to food, water, and energy. And, so a big one is like for that is also where you work. And so if you're working for a company that's going to make you take an injection, well, first of all, there's many ways of getting out of that. There's religious exemptions. There's all kinds of ways of getting around that. And then it's once you can have a better handle on where you work and who you're working for, start to look at those other systems in your life. And the big one for me is food, because I think that's the next wave of, how they're going to assert this control is with food. We've heard stories about food shortages, even Biden was talking about getting ready for food shortages. That might be the one thing that we should listen to him about. And we've seen this in many different areas. You can talk about the fact that Russia exports, I think, 60% of the world's fertilizer. Someone needs to fact check me on that number, but farmers are planting less and less of their fields. Gas prices are going up. Therefore, costs of all the goods, including food, goes up. Diesel is going up. Tractors and farm equipment are run on diesel. And so there's, A, going to be a food shortage because farmers are planting less of their fields, and B, the prices of the food that you're able to get is going to increase. And so we really need to be thinking about our food security in this next wave of, whether it's planned or not, of this coming challenge.
Wow. Well, that brings me to just think of straight up our soil force. And that's one of the main reasons we've rolled out with our mine is to allow people to have access to these minerals for your soil. So soilforce.com is a spot for all the farmers that can't get the fertilizer or don't want to over fertilize. We can add minerals back in the soil. So that's one solution. I know we've been testing it with yours over the last 6 months or so with your gardens and farmers. So coming soon, I'm sure.
By the way, they are doing great. And I'm in a not, I live out in the country, so not too urban, but in a not too big of a area, I'm able to grow just about all of the vegetables that I need. And so you really don't need a lot of room. It's more about being smart with what you're planting. So for example, if you're growing, let's say, a head of broccoli, for example, you might get one broccoli out of that head. But if you're growing a green beans plant, that plant will continue to produce for many months, and it'll continue to produce food for many months. And so if you're smart about the plants that you are planting, you can get a lot of food in not much in a small area. And so so think about what you're planting in relation to your space and to your climate, and you can really grow a lot of food in a small area.
I love it. Well, let's go into that a little bit and creating a food forest. And what are you guys doing as far as educating people on how to grow? And just let's go that direction.
Sure. So, my thing is I started with raised beds, and so you can use pretty cheap material for this. You can use this sort of like these roofing type metal sheets, or you could use lumber, or you could use a bunch of different things, cinder blocks, and fill the bottoms with like sticks and leaves and spent plants and the rest of it. And then only the top maybe 6 inches need to be actual soil. So that's to start. And then what that does is it keeps out the weeds, and it becomes much easier to work with that. And a lot less time goes into sort of maintaining that garden once you've set it up. So that's what I started with. And then I really try to think about the seasonality of the vegetables that I'm planting in relation to my climate. So I'm in North Carolina, so it gets pretty hot in the summer. So I start very early in the year. You can start plants indoors, transplant them outside, and then if you're smart about what you're planting, like for example, if you're planting leafy green vegetables in the early spring, you can continue to pick and eat from that same plant month after month after month until it gets really hot, and then you put something else in as soon as that that plant is done producing. And so you go from one plant that produces a lot to another one that produces a lot in a small area, and you really can grow a lot of food in not much space. And so I fill it with organic compost and topsoil mix along with some amendments. The Soil Force is one. We sell a biochar product. It's called Char Grow. That's on both of our websites. So we really want to make sure that people are, taking their food security into their own hands. And so, that helps to, the Soil Force adds minerals. The biochar adds, it's like it's nutrients, but it's also a sort of water stabilizer. It holds the water in the soil, but not too much. And so it's really great for plants, on an ongoing basis. It's not just a one-time feed and then you have to keep doing it. So yeah, and then, staying on top of it and continuing to plant seasonally, as the spring turns to summer turns to fall. And then there's also, amendments that you can make to your garden beds, like covering them in the cold months. You can cover them with a plastic covering or sort of like a modified hoop house over the garden beds. And that will extend your growing season into the colder months. And then what you do is you preserve as much of these vegetables as possible. So for example, if you're growing cabbage, you make sauerkraut. If you're growing green beans or okra, you can pickle the okra, or cucumbers, you can pickle cucumbers. And so that's one of the things that we have many different blogs on canning and preserving food in addition to growing it. So it's that sort of two-pronged approach. You're growing a lot of your own food and then preserving it through canning or other methods to, save what you've grown.
Nice. And then how much into fermentation are you and making kombucha and such?
A little bit. I mean, I have my first batch of homegrown sauerkraut fermenting right now. So that's it's homegrown and homemade sauerkraut. So it's going to be, I harvested 5 heads of cabbage about a week ago, and I have those fermenting. It usually takes about 2 weeks in the sauerkraut crock. So that's other things that you can do is, there's fermentation crocks and other things. Kombucha is a really easy one to do. All you need is tea, sugar, and a starter. And those are available, in a lot of different places. And I've done kombucha several times in the past, and then what happens is you start to clone your scobies, and then unless you're like throwing them out or composting them, they can get out of hand, and then you just have jar after jar after jar of scobies. And so you just kind of 2 is probably all you need to go from one batch to the next, and then you can compost your scobies. But I've done kombucha in the past. I haven't really experimented with flavors. So just basically a flavorless kombucha with a little bit of ginger. Ginger helps to help have that natural carbonation in the kombucha. So
yeah, definitely. Now, how about composting? Let's dive into that a little bit. Do you guys compost, and what is the cycle of a compost? How do you know when the compost is ready?
That's a good question. So yes, I do compost, and so I basically have three piles. So the first pile is the newest plants, and like the spent plants and grass and that kind of stuff. The middle pile is sort of like the in between, which is where I put the food scraps. So that's probably a little further along in the composting cycle. And then the third pile, that's the ready to use compost. And for me, it took about a year to get my compost ready to use. So I add that to my beds and use it that way as a sort of amendment to the soil. So it goes on top, or you can mix it into the soil. And I basically turn it every couple of weeks. I just turn it with a shovel, turn it over, and then it kind of just breaks down over time. And then when it starts to resemble a soil, it'll turn dark brown or even black, which is good. That means it's more nutrient dense. That's and the pieces, you're not getting these little pieces of eggshells or food or something like that. When it's unrecognizable, I think that's when it's ready. So I don't know specifically, other than everything looks like it's broken down, and there's lots of worms, there's lots of creepy crawlers in there. That's when you can put it into your beds as an amendment to the soil.
Wow, that's great. Well, you guys, these are just simple little tips you can do at home and start to create your own compost piles and then raise bedded gardens. I mean, really simple to make, and it's so effective. So I just love hearing about this. I love growing. We moved into a new home at the end of last year and have some bedded gardens, have about half a dozen different trees, and it is so fun to go out and pick a fig and eat it right off the tree.
Yeah, we at my old house, we had an amazing fig tree, very prolific. We probably had more figs than we could eat. My wife made fig jam and fig ice cream, and I think a fig infused salad dressing one time. So that was really cool. And yeah, so we have other fruit trees. I'm still not great with fruit trees. My peach tree, which looks like a pretty mature peach tree, the peaches don't get fully ripe. And so I have to figure out something to do. Maybe I'm not pruning it correctly, or maybe I need to use more soil force to get that really going. So fruit trees is something that I'm going to get into, and then chickens as well. I would say that's my next step in this process of trying to become more and more, food independent.
Yeah. And so just to get a little more specific, what region are you in? And then I know one of your neighbors has been a homestead for over 100 years.
Yeah, so I'm in North Carolina, the Piedmont region. So I think it's 7A, zone 7A, I believe. And yeah, my neighbor across the street, that's the guy who he has 3 gardens bigger than one of mine. So I don't even know what he does with all his food, because I can grow more than what I need. I'm giving stuff away to my mother-in-law, to friends, all that stuff. And he has 3 gardens bigger than mine. So I don't even know what he's doing with all his food. He does offer us some, which is nice. But he has, I think, 30 cows. And then his son and daughter-in-law, those are the people with the homestead. They live about 5 minutes away from us. They have about 100 laying hens, and they have a cycle of, 30 to 40 meat birds, at various ages at any given time. And then the son also raises cattle as well. So I've, made good friends with them, and I'm actually trying to help them expand their operation so that, they're a needed sort of supply of eggs and meat in the area for their neighbors, and B, if I can help them to expand their operation, like one of the things they need is a better place to store feed for their chickens, because if rodents or something like that get into the feed, they lose the feed, and that's not good. So we need to come up with a way of being able to store more feed. And that's another thing that's really important in this is community and neighbors and people of like mind who understand what's going on and are actively taking steps to secure their food security, because that's going to be a big one, whether it's higher prices or just the availability of it. So I want to help them so that the whole area is more food secure. I get all my eggs there. I get my chicken there. They do have a big vegetable garden that they let people come and pick vegetables. I don't really use that part because I have my own, but they're a very important member of this little community that we're part of.
Yeah, well, we're looking at this as urban freedom, as really having people that have those resources be the more of the decentralized hub where you guys can come in and pull from, learn from, start to get creative, and then maybe you'll have a select tree or garden that they don't, and you could start to just ebb and flow off of each other. And I mean, that's kind of how we're looking at decentralization, and really, through education. And I know you wanted to start, where you guys was starting education on farming and doing some classes on that.
We're still in the infancy stages there. We do have some resources on our website, some blogs about growing and preserving food, but we're still sort of pretty far away on the, more formal education. But I want to reiterate, like, the food shortages are coming. Like, we're planning on launching a granola product fairly soon. And I was talking to the producer, and they said that the number one biggest distributor of natural and organic products in the US, which is UNFI, they are out of oats, have been for weeks, and don't know when they'll be back in stock. And so if that doesn't say food shortages and rising prices, I don't know what will, because oats is a pretty staple, that's a staple that a lot of people eat, whether it's oats themselves or in other foods like granola or something like that. Oats are in a lot of different foods. And if the largest distributor in the US can't get a hold of them, then, something's going on, whether it's an issue with the supply or with the, logistics of the grains going through the supply chain and with all the logistics and all that stuff, whatever it is, those shortages are here. And so I want to reiterate to get to know your neighbors, form a community. And then, probably a good idea would be to go to the farmers market and talk to the farmers there, get to know those farmers, so that you do have that source of food, whether it's vegetables or meat products. And I would say, a big thing would be to, get a freezer if you can, and store as much meat as you can in your freezer. You can buy a half a cow or a quarter of a cow if you can afford that, and that will go a long ways. You're buying better quality than what you're getting at the grocery store, but you're also buying it in bulk and getting it cheaper directly from the farmer. So there's a lot of reasons to do that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a huge suggestion. I have had several friends look at doing that for saving money and then efficiency, and then have those backup generators in case the electricity goes out for a few days.
Yep.
That you want to have that so all your supply doesn't rot. And that's a huge part of this. So My goodness. I mean, you guys, we got to look to the future. And if one of the largest or, sellers and resellers and growers is having challenges supplying, and you're seeing it on your end, you're hearing it directly from them. These are messages that we just really want to get out and have, timely solutions. So we're not in this crunch with everybody, and getting to know these farmers around. I mean, there's so many great ones around our area that I've gotten to know throughout Southern California. And then we have our own food supply, and to look into endeavors like Jim Gale and Create Food Forest. And he has the whole support staff to help you actually create a food forest abundance. That's the name of his company, where you can go in and start to grow stuff. So we're looking at adding mushrooms and blueberries and a lot of other artichokes and a lot of other growing potential to our backyard. And it's more of a hillside area. And but the list goes on and on what we can really do. And if everyone did that and each neighbor did their part, and then we have these great water structuring devices and filterizations, we're going to set ourselves up for success. So go into the water now. I know food has been big on this topic. Water is so huge for me as well. And then structuring the water is so huge right now. That's just one of the biggest things. And we sell a hose bib that structures it as it goes out of your hose. What do you guys have for your home solutions for structuring water?
Yeah, so first we're on a well, so we're not subject to city water and all the fluoride and pharmaceuticals that are and other toxins that are present in city water. And then for the drinking water, we have a reverse osmosis filtration system, which by itself is not the greatest to drink because it's essentially dead water. So there's no minerals and it's totally unstructured dead water. So what we do is we add a sort of mineral supplement. It's our marine plasma seawater, which is structured seawater from naturally occurring vortexes, hyperfiltrated and hyperfiltered. And so it's very clean, and it's essentially a mineral supplement that I add to a pitcher of water that I get from the reverse osmosis tap. After I've added the sea plasma, which is the minerals, I use our analemma water wand to structure the water. And so it's basically a wand that has it's a crystal, and it has water inside that has been subjected to light and sound and all good things that the water, when it comes into contact with the water in the wand, it sort of remembers its structure and form and then structures itself. And so it's a great tool to structure your water for your drinking water. And then for showers, because you also want structured water to shower and oxygenated water to shower, we have a variety of shower heads that have crystals and these vortexes in them that vortexes oxygenates and structures the water that comes through your showers. And it's a great way to take a shower. And they also make attachments for garden hoses and reverse osmosis filters, and we're coming out with more of them soon. And then we'll also have whole house options as well. So we're about to launch products where it essentially vortexes the water for a whole house system. And so more to come on that. Hopefully by the end of June, those will be live. So we're very excited about that because we get a lot of questions about different solutions for, drinking and using the best water. And so I think we've found a really good solution for that.
Oh, definitely. So that's huge. You guys, water is one of the big things. And when it has structure, your body knows what to do with it and how to utilize it. And when it doesn't have structure, you can drink as much as you want. It won't really hydrate you much at all. And So that's why it needs that structure. And then once it has a structure, you need the minerals, and the minerals are what our body uses to absorb it as well. So a huge component. Now with your websites, drtomcowan.com and drcowansgarden.com. I mean, you guys have sold some incredible things. We have some heart herbs, right? And then strophanthus, right?
Yeah, strophanthus it's kind of like this miracle plant, miracle herb or medication, whatever you want to call it. It's primarily meant for the heart, for a variety of heart conditions. But it's also being shown to have many other benefits like anti-aging. And there was a paper written recently that said it was an antiviral or a treatment for COVID. Now, I don't believe in viruses, but what they found with strophanthus was that when it was put into contact with something that was, what they call a virus. So in this case, it was the tissues breaking down. So the tissue breaking down in a cell culture, that's what they call the virus. So what happened when they introduced strophanthus was that the tissues didn't break down as much, and so they, in my opinion, erroneously referred to that as an antiviral. But what it's really doing is preventing tissues from breaking down. So it's sort of this miracle all-purpose plant or medication that you can take. That it's primarily meant for the heart, and so if you're at risk for a heart attack or have had a heart attack, it would be something that I would definitely recommend. But it's also being shown to have a wide variety of other health benefits, and so that's one of our. It's definitely one of our more popular products and one that a lot of people rely on.
Yeah. And I know your dad wrote a book on that the heart's not a pump. And it just goes back to understanding physics, biology, and having a deeper awareness. Like our body is electric and so is the universe, and we're one with it. And viruses, fungus, bacteria, those are all our adaptive systems that we couldn't live without. And there's nothing to fear about them. That's how we adapt. That's how the soil adapts and we compost, and our body works the same way. So to understand how the heart works and to have an herb that supports that energy flow is unbelievable. And then I know one of your other leading products is, the grounding bags have done well. They've been industry leaders for you guys we had a few months in running, but I know like over the long haul, you're known for your biodynamic seasonings and some incredible powder. So those I can't let you go without talking and sharing how much I absolutely love those, and literally sprinkle them on every meal. So I'm getting this really biodynamic and nutrient dense meal just with sprinkling on some different seasonings, and it melts right in. It's so flavorful. It adds color to it. I mean, you guys, like, you've created such winners on all your seasonings, and there's not just one that you just need. Yeah, we get the kale from this, and the moringa from this, and we get that extra protein density, and so I just love them.
Yeah, and they're really great for if you're busy. You may not have time to wash and chop all your fresh vegetables, or maybe you are a parent of a picky eater who doesn't necessarily like to eat their vegetables. I have 3 kids, and it's sometimes a challenge to get them to eat. But what I can do is I can sneak in some beet powder and turmeric powder and burdock powder into their pancakes, and they don't even know that it's in there. And so, I'm using freshly ground flour from the oats that we sell, and I'm fermenting that overnight and then adding the powders in the morning. But what they see is a pancake, and they don't see all the other stuff that that I've done to make that, a really healthy breakfast food for them. It's fermented flour, it's vegetables, it's eggs, and they get a whole big huge dollop of butter on top of that. So what I've done is taken something that a lot of people might have a pancake mix out of a box, but I've turned that into a health food with the type of flour that I'm using, the preparation that I'm doing with the fermentation process, and then the vegetables that I'm adding into it to get them to eat it, or not to get them to eat it, but they're eating it because it's pancakes, but I'm adding in so much good stuff that it becomes like a health food and they don't even know it. So that's
plus the good fat.
Yeah, plus the good fat with the ghee that we came out. I said butter, but now I'm remembering that we also have certified A2 ghee, which A1 protein is the protein that a lot of people have trouble with in dairy, and so this ghee is certified A2, so nobody should have any issues with that. It's the healthy, really healthy fat, and so this food that a lot of people are making it in a way that it's a junk food. You can shift your mindset and then make it into something that's a health food with all the different stuff that we're adding. And that's the general principle that I go by when I'm feeding my kids, is how can I take something that they will eat and make it into something that it's an actual health food. And part of the way I do it is adding in vegetables through the vegetable powders to just about everything they eat. And, and lo and behold, they've gotten all their vegetables, they eat their meat, they eat all their fats, and they eat very healthy, at the end of the day. So,
yeah, again, urban freedom, that's how you guys go beyond and take your health vitality to another level. These are all the different layers of urban freedom. It's not just about being all angry at the government and this and that. It's really about having some awareness and raising your level of consciousness. So you start feeding your mind, body, and spirit with proper nutrition and have awareness to connect to these like-minded people and people that have the resources to grow. And so you start to learn and take your energies into really understanding what goes in you directly is related to what comes out of you. If you're putting crap in your system, you're gonna output that same energy. So this is a huge part to wellness and vitality. So hey, I just want to thank you so much, Asher, for your voice out there, for your incredible websites, for your family, for everything you're doing to help us keep our urban freedom growing stronger and stronger, building this tribe and awareness at such a deeper level. And any other words that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, and first of all, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun to be a part of this. And I think the biggest thing is to once you can see the agenda, know what's going to happen, then you can start to get prepared and then actually have some fun with it. When you're living that life, and it's not banging people over the head with the food shortages are coming, look at what's in the vaccines and all of the rest of it. But once you can sort of have that awareness and then start taking steps in your own life, if you have a sense of empowerment, and then you start having fun with it. Once you're having fun with it and taking things into your own hands, that's when you start to attract people and say, people will say, what's this guy doing? Why is he having so much fun? Why is he in such a better mood and in a better place mentally than I am? And that's when they start asking questions like, what are you doing? How can I get involved? And that's how you sort of build from the ground up your own personal freedom and sovereignty by taking action and eventually having fun with it. And so I would say that mindset shift is the critical component to all of this.
Love it. Dr. Tom, COWN.com You guys, check it out. Thank you, Asher. You are legendary, and I appreciate you. You guys, thanks for going beyond with us, and we will chat with you very soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.